So the talk today is titled What's New? And it's because I spent the week at the 108th INTA Congress in Fort Lauderdale and talking about what's new and new thought. One of the sessions, somebody read a poem by Rumi, the Sufi poet, and it was The Guest House, and it's a beautiful poem. And this morning during my yoga, which I do every Sunday morning, today was on the deck because the weather is lovely here in Philadelphia. During the Shavasana meditation at the end, the yoga instructor read The Guest House by Rumi. So I can take a hint. I'm going to read you The Guest House by Rumi to start things off. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival. A joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice. Meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whatever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. And there are all sorts of wonderful synchronicities that show up at when we open ourselves up to new possibilities. So the 108th INTA Congress, celebrating the 109th year of the International New Thought Alliance. They missed a year during World War II for reasons that are probably pretty obvious if you were in the middle of World War II. Anyway, we're at Sunshine Cathedral in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, which is the world's largest queer church, and that's what they call themselves, queer church. And there are lots of congregations that have sizable gay components, so it's not that it's gay, but they've claimed the name queer. And Darrell Watkins, who's the senior minister there, explained what that means, and it was in a way that brought new meaning to me. When somebody introduces themselves or identifies themselves as queer, that's because there's not a label that particularly applies. So when somebody presents themselves, you don't get to put them into a label or a category or a box and say, oh, I know who they are. It's about being present and understanding what it is that they're bringing and accepting them for who they are. It's about meeting people where they are without any labels. And it's a beautiful facility, and it's really well run, and the people there are just as nice as can be. And they're doing some very valuable work, and they're in Florida, and their communities are under attack, and they are not just weathering the attack, they are thriving and pushing back. There's a soup kitchen there. We were a little bit inconvenienced because we had lost access to the part of the facility on Wednesday afternoon because they feed 800 homeless people every Wednesday. So there was the big food drive that was going on there, and it was worth every little bit of it. Every little bit of it. Along the way, I had a wonderful PrayerWorks story that came along. And we love to talk about PrayerWorks because we believe that practical prayer creates a difference in our lives. It creates a result. And when we go through the classes, mostly we're teaching you the 5 steps of a practical prayer, which is the recognition and unification, where we identify that infinite creative power that creates everything, and then identify that power abides within us. It is us. And then with that knowledge and understanding, we make a claim, an affirmation, a realization where we claim the good that we're seeking. We then move into a statement of gratitude and then release that to that infinite creative law that creates everything. And if there's some doubt that comes in along the way, then we go to a 7th step. We actually face the doubt, turn it down, and reclaim the affirmation. And one of the models that we use for practical prayer was actually based on all of the effective prayers in all of the religions in the world. And in Christianity, the best example of one of those prayers is the Lord's Prayer, where Jesus says, pray like this, and he lays out the 7 steps of a practical prayer. And throughout the rest of the New Testament, where it's telling stories of Jesus praying, he always did them in 1 step, which is Jesus made an affirmation and it happened. And that's because he was living in that zone where he could make that claim with the absolute authority of the infinite. And he was always living with the identity with his father, his heart, and open to the Father, and understanding that the Father and I are one. And he could do that in a single step. Every once in a while, I get a result from a single step prayer. And I had one of those experiences this week. So I was working with the technology crew at Sunshine Cathedral. They're the folks from New Thought Media Network who are broadcasting on YouTube and recording and presenting on Zoom. And on Wednesday evening, Robert Brzezinski, who's the president of the network, who was also on the crew, said to me, "We can't find the little plastic box that the camera cards go in, a little thing for SD cards. We can't find where that is." So he says, "Watch me." And I'm putting the SD cards in this piece of paper. And he put it in a piece of paper, and he folded the paper up. And he says, "I'm putting it in my pocket because I don't want to lose these. I want to make sure that they get where they're supposed to be." Okay, he did that. We're at the hotel at breakfast on the following morning, on Thursday morning. And Robert says, "You're not going to believe what happened." And he says, "I went back to the hotel and I downloaded all of the videos from the cards. So we have the files." And he said, "And I put the cards back in the paper and tucked them away so they'd be safe and sure not to be lost." He said, "And this morning I could not find them. No matter where I looked, I couldn't find them. I checked the trash, I checked my pockets, I emptied out my entire bag. They were nowhere to be found. I couldn't find them anywhere." And I just got a hit, and I said, "Go back to the room and look one more time, and they will be the first place you look." And he says, "Okay." And so I left to go get my stuff because we were going to drive over to the cathedral. I was not out of the restaurant, and he says, "Bill, I found him." He had taken out his wallet to tip the server, and he had put the cards into the wallet the night before. And we went down to the car, and the other guy on the crew said, "Oh, I found the plastic box. It was in my pocket." So it is possible for this to work instantaneously. There is no necessary delay, and it can be something that seems trivial or something that seems really important. It would have just been just as possible that the entire production would have ground to a halt if we didn't come up with the pieces that were there. Open yourself up to something good, something wonderful, something new. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the new stuff that came along at the Congress. And it's looking like the next year's Congress, which is going to be at Unity Village, also the third week in July, is going to be specifically focused on education and New Thought education and bringing the education from all of the different branches of New Thought together. So that's really powerful. And this year there was another education panel. We did one last year. And this year the panelists were very much in alignment. These are people from the Universal Foundation for Better Living and from Unity and Divine Science and Religious Science, independent and national organizations. Unity was there. It was a really powerful group of people. And the topic turned to some of the popular preachers who are saying New Thought-ish things, like Joel Osteen. Joel Osteen has a very, very affirmative message, and one of the panelists pointed out and said, "Yeah, it's a very positive message, and it's very meaningful, and it's not New Thought." And everybody goes, "What do you mean it's not New Thought?" And her point was, it's not New Thought because if we believe that there is an intermediary between us and God, then we're putting our power somewhere outside of ourselves. This is a unity teaching. We believe in oneness. There is, as we like to say, New Thought cuts out the middleman. You go direct and save. And Durrell, during his talk, said that he was actually too lazy to do some of the other things. He says he can't remember the hierarchy of angels, and he can't remember all of the stuff that's in the Kabbalah and all the rules. So he'd just as soon remember one thing and understand that one creative power that creates everything has created each of us, and it's within us. So just remember, New Thought cuts out the middleman. You get to go direct and save, or be saved, or whatever it is that you're going to be doing. The other thing that was really, really powerful was a talk by Shad Groverland. He's the president of and the CEO of Unity Worldwide Ministries. And his talk was, "Will we lead or will we follow?" And I'm going to share the link to the YouTube because it was broadcast. The evening sessions are broadcast to everybody who's interested. And I'll share a link to that. It's on New Thought Media Network. And he had done a talk that last year at the Congress, and he was doing an update on that. He says, well, what's changed? And he pointed out that the Surgeon General had noticed and claimed that the United States is having an epidemic of loneliness and isolation. And then what he did is he recommended action for this public health crisis, which is to advance social connection. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but the Surgeon General saying isolation and loneliness has become an epidemic in the United States is a big thing. It is a big thing, and it's exacerbated by social media. It was made much worse by the fact that a lot of people are isolated during the pandemic. But advancing social connection seems to be something that is, he pointed out, in our line of work. As ministries, as communities, we have the ability to connect with people. And so that was the invitation for us, is we get to connect with people. How are we going to do it? What are we going to do? How are we going to make it work? And we a lot of times we talk about technology, because technology allows us, right now it's allowing us to be connected, allowing me to speak, and for us to be in community together, even though we're all over the country. Is technology necessarily going to be the answer? Well, Shad told the story, but he was at a symposium talking about how to hire and work with Gen Z, with the youngest members of the workforce, and he says that they were told that this generation has an incredibly short attention span, like to the tune of 8 seconds, and because of the way that the planet has been treated and the way that politics are going, it's a generation that doesn't believe that there's going to be anything for them later on. So it's very much about instant gratification and immediacy, and that's really sad. That's really, really sad. And the promise of social media was that we would be able to connect together and learn things and share things. And it's turned into an addiction to a screen where we need to be constantly watching, because we're going to be missing out if we're not connected. One of the points that he made is that we've allowed corporations to capture all aspects of government and society, to monetize us. And that has led to us doing what's trending rather than what we choose to do. How many times are we checking social media or thinking that we're missing out if we don't check on social media? And Shad's point overall is it doesn't matter who's selling it. If we're buying it, it doesn't matter who's selling it. Something that I had known about but hadn't put a whole lot of thought into is that the state of Montana has banned TikTok. And on the one hand, I don't personally care that much what the state of Montana does. They do enough nonsensical things as far as I'm concerned that I can largely disregard them. And so this, might be another one of them. But their point was that TikTok is different in China. In China, the way TikTok is set up is that if the algorithm determines that somebody is 14 or under, then the things that they get are science experiments that they can do at home, and museum exhibits, and interesting bits of information that will uplift their lives. And it's limited to 40 minutes a day. It'll actually shut off after 40 minutes a day. That's the one that they keep for themselves. And the one that they export is the one that is fueling anger and fear. And maybe we want to know how that algorithm is working. Maybe we want to know what that's feeding up to us, and especially to our children under 14. And maybe if we knew, we'd say no. Or not for me. Or let's do something different. Or God forbid the people in Montana are right. It is completely possible. So the question is, what do we want to do? And by the way, if people are addicted to their screens and our suggestion is, let's put more stuff on their screens because we can put in memes that are uplifting and inspiring and wonderful messages, is that going to be something that's going to solve the problem, or is that going to be something that feeds the algorithm and continues to exacerbate the problem? Because what we want to be able to do is connect in community. And that brought up a whole bunch of questions for me. Twice a day I'm doing a meditation on Zoom. And it's not a recording that people can watch later. It is something where we're connecting live and the people are participating in it. It's a relatively small group, and we get to connect individually and personally and get to know each other. And I still, am I being defensive when I'm saying, oh, that's a good thing? I don't know. It's worth checking into to understand what we're doing and what it is that we want to be doing. She has great questions. What happens when good intentions become unintended consequences? We think we're doing one thing, and it turns out maybe we're doing a different thing, and so we get to step back and say, what is it that we're really doing? There's a story in the Bible. Exodus 32. Moses went up to get the commandments, to get the marching orders from God. It took a while. And so the people became impatient. They're hanging around waiting for something to happen, and nothing's happening, and they're getting impatient. And so they try to get Aaron to make a golden calf that they can worship. And the idea is people without patience and faith will create their own God. And we are much more advanced than the people in Exodus. And we have much more going on now. We must know a lot more, and we have much more resource that's available. And we're in the process of creating and liberating and owning artificial intelligence, of letting the machines tell us what to do, and not necessarily understanding the algorithms of why they're telling us what they're telling us. And maybe there's a way to do that in a way that's going to be positive and uplifting for us and for everybody. We don't want to do it just because we can do it. We want to do it because it's going to be helpful, because it's going to be uplifting, because it's going to change our lives and make it better. So these are some of the themes that came up for me at the 108th INTA Congress, and wonderful and rich and inspiring, and some great insights about how we can be who we want to be. And taking some of the insight from Sunshine Cathedral, we started New Thought Philadelphia. We say we believe there's one power, love, intelligence, or force that creates everything, including each of us, and that we're each using that same power, love, intelligence, or force to create our lives according to our beliefs. And the way the Queer Church opens their celebration is they say Sunshine Cathedral is a different kind of church, where our God is love, kindness is our worship, compassion is our prayer, the sacred value of all people is our creed, and healing the hurt caused by hatred is our mission. All people have sacred value. And I believe that too. And understanding that when claiming queer church and saying we want to meet people where they are without any labels, you can take that a step further. We want to meet people where they are and not leave them there. We want to be able to connect together in community and uplift each other and allow ourselves to be uplifted and to connect and to make those wise choices and to be guided into the next perfect steps that we're going to be taking, individually and all together. Because that's how love unfolds. So that's how I spent my summer vacation. First up, I'm heading off to the Parliament of World Religions next month. I'm into the affiliated New Thought Network retreat a month or so after that. So you'll hear some more about these in various different dimensions. But that's what's new. And as you move into your week, pay attention to what you're paying attention to. Think about what you're thinking about. Allow those thoughts to be thoughts. And remember that just because you thought it doesn't mean it's true. There's different possibilities. You are a blessing and a gift, and I'm so grateful for you. And so it is.